Lad McConkey's ADP is way too high in Dynasty leagues. We'll tell you who you should be drafting instead next.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. You can also check me out over on the Locked On Cowboys podcast. And usually on these shows, I'm joined by Michael Fabiano, who you can follow on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. You can also check out his great work over on SI. But on today's show, we're joined by a special guest. And if you're not watching on YouTube, you're completely missing out. It's the Great Fabini, who is here to tell us the players you should be drafting and shouldn't be drafting for your dynasty teams in 2025. So the Great Fabini, let's start with a wide receiver that you and I were looking at the other day. Lad McConkey right now is being drafted as wide receiver 10. Tell us why that's too high.
This is all very easy for the Great Fabini, Marcus, because I can see into the future. I know the future. Nostradamus, he's got nothing on the Great Fabini. And the Great Fabini is a big fan of Lad McConkey. The Great Fabini actually predicted his sleeper season in 2024. But now, Marcus, things have gotten a little too crazy around Lad McConkey. Right now, he's being drafted as the wide receiver 10 in dynasty startups. 10. Last season, he finished tied for 12th among wide receivers. And Marcus, the Great Fabini, believes that might have been his ceiling. Think about the offense of Greg Roman. I know Greg Roman for a long, long time. He's been an offensive coordinator for a decade in the National Football League. And McConkey's wide receiver 12 finish last season was the best finish of any wide receiver ever in a Greg Roman system. And now we are drafting him as if he's going to be a wide receiver 1 for the remainder of his career. Only 2 other wide receivers have ever been in the top 15 in a Greg Roman offense. That was Anquan Bolden and Michael Crabtree, and neither one of them finished higher than 15th.
Was that with the 49ers?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
Well done. The Great Fabini gives you credit for that memory. Also, Lad McConkey, as much as the Great Fabini loves Laddie Daddy, which that Fabiano character calls him, he is not the most durable player. He dealt with injuries in college. He also is dealing with an injury right now that's considered minor, but still notable. And I love Lad McConkey, but at wide receiver 10, he's a little too rich for the Great Fabini's blood. Now, you know who I'd rather have.
Yeah, we'll get to that in just a second.
Than Lad McConkey.
Yeah, we'll get to him.
That's called the tease.
That's called a tease. There you go.
From the Great Fabini.
I really like Lad. So this is not a shot at Lad or anything like that. I just think wide receiver 10 is a little overvalued. They did add Trey Harris in the second round of the draft this year. Quentin Johnston's had an up and down camp, but he's still there. There's not a lot of other receivers in this passing game, but you mentioned like this is going to be a run heavy offense. They drafted Omari and Hampton. Greg Roman has said that he thinks Lad can go to another level. It's just, it feels high for a receiver that is this small, that is primarily going to play out of the slot. But if you're not drafting Lad at wide receiver 10, we like him more like in the wide receiver 13, wide receiver 14 range. So not a big drop off, but who would you rather be drafting in that range instead of Lad McConkey?
The Great Fabini loves Rashee Rice. Yeah. And I understand that Rashee Rice is very likely to be suspended because he was a naughty boy off the field. But knowing that he's going to be suspended this season is actually a good thing. And it's baked into his ADP. If you look at the numbers last season before he injured his knee, 7.3 targets per game, 16.2 fantasy points per game. Had he kept up that pace for a full 17 games, Rice would have finished with more fantasy points than Malik Neighbors.
Yeah.
who the great Fabini also loved last season. But of course, you know that because I can see into the future. Rice has looked very good in training camp. And how much longer is Travis Kelce going to play pro football? If Taylor Swift were my girlfriend, the great Fabini would retire right now and spend every minute with her. So very soon, the great Fabini sees Rashee Rice becoming the number one wide receiver target and the number one target in the Chiefs offense for Patrick Mahomes. Dad bod or not, that is a good thing. So the fact that Rashee Rice is being drafted at wide receiver 15, 5 spots behind Lad McConkey, is laughable to the great Fabini. Rashee Rice is the better wide receiver in dynasty drafts. The great Fabini.
First of all, love it. I can't get over the great Fabini. But yeah, I agree with you on Rashee Rice. Like we saw from the second half of the 2023 season and the first few games of the 2024 season, I mean, he was scoring this. He was at the same pace as what Justin Jefferson was in terms of fantasy points per game. Now, you're coming off a pretty major injury. There is a suspension in there, and you got to see what it looks like now with Xavier Worthy on this offense. But you're also not having to pay, Justin Jefferson prices. You're getting him at wide receiver 15. We're telling you that he is still a value all the way up to wide receiver 10. And yes, he's probably going to serve a suspension. It's probably going to be around 6 games, but we're in this for the long haul. This is a dynasty podcast. You're going to get him for the second half of your fantasy football season this year. You're not going to have to worry about it at all in 2026. I think the Chiefs are going to sign him to a long-term deal, just the way that their contracts are structured right now. They're going to have the money to pay him. And I do think they are going to pay him because he's a perfect fit in the Andy Reid offense because he can beat zone coverage, but he also can beat man-to-man coverage out of the slot. He's somebody that makes plays after the catch. I think the long-term vision is having Rice in the slot and then Xavier Worthy is the guy who stretches the field. And that's what this new look offense is going to be with Patrick Mahomes. I want Rashee Rice on every single one of my dynasty teams. I would pay that price.
Obviously, you have benefited from the knowledge of the great Fabini, Marcus Mosher. So I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah, we'll see. The great Fabini is not always right, though, is he?
The great Fabini is mostly correct. Never question the great Fabini.
That's all right. It's fine. All right, let's talk about some tight ends that we think are good values in your dynasty leagues and one that you should be staying completely away from. We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just out making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. And let's be honest, some days of the course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and stay energized. I was playing on Tuesday. It was 100 degrees. By the time I got to hole 12, 13, I was dragging, but 5 Hour Energy was there to save the day. And golf is all about the good times with good people and good flavors, of course. And the grape, ginger, lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use our promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders, whether you're out meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36. Get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5 Hour Energy shots today. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are here with Michael the great Fabini. I got to make sure not Fabs, the great Fabini.
Who is this Fabiano character?
I think we need to make you a Twitter. that way you can have all your forecasts and stuff on there. But anyways, let's talk about some tight ends, because you don't seem very high on Kyle Pittz this year, the Great Fabini.
By the way, the Great Fabini enjoys a round of golf with a little 5-hour energy. The Great Fabini may be coming over the top a little bit of his drives, but that's a different story. The Great Fabini is great when it comes to prognosticating fantasy football, maybe not so much on the golf course. So you mentioned a tight end who even the Great Fabini cannot understand the fascination with, and that's Kyle Pittz. So Marcus, what do you think is the fascination with Kyle Pittz? Is it his age? Is it the fact that he got drafted in the first round? Because what I see is a player since his rookie season who has done nothing to warrant being considered a top 12 fantasy tight end. But there he is at tight end 12. The Great Fabini does not understand this. Last season, Kyle Pittz averaged 7.7 points per game. The Great Fabini can average 8 in his sleep, and he is not maybe considered to be a great prospect coming out of college, although the Great Fabini can run a pretty good 40.
All right, hold on for
Kyle Pittz.
I will give you the allure here for Kyle Pittz, right? You mentioned the rookie season, 1,000 yards on 68 receptions. He averaged 15 yards a catch that year. Before Brock Bowers, that was only the second tight end in NFL history to have 1,000 yards during his rookie season. The other one was Mike Ditka way back in the 1960s. So he posted a rookie season that we had never seen before. And that was with some pretty subpar quarterback play. And I know the quarterback play has been pretty rough the last couple of years, but you're talking about somebody who has this ceiling that just not many other tight ends have. The problem is 667 yards in 2023, 602 yards in 2024. The yards per catch have gone down. It's back up to 12.8. He's actually working out with the receivers more and being used outside, which is a good and bad thing. Maybe the hope is that with Michael Penix going into year 2, we'll just see this offense be more high flying and we'll see more shots down the field.
Marcus, unfortunately, I see that you've fallen into the misconception once again that Kyle Pittz can be a good fantasy tight end. Sure, he was very good as a rookie. That was 5 years ago, Marcus. I know. 5 years ago. And last season, he averaged a career worst 7.7 fantasy points per game. Marcus, it's time to forget about Kyle Pittz being a number 1 fantasy tight end. It is time, Marcus, for folks to move on from Kyle Pittz, no matter what the excuse has been. He has more excuses than Aaron Boone for Anthony Volpe's awful defensive playing this season. Yes,
that sounds like a Babs talking.
Also happens to root for the New York Yankees, and if the Great Fabini was smart when it came to baseball, maybe I'd be a Dodgers fan. But Kyle Pittz is being drafted too highly, Marcus. Tight end 12 is too rich for the Great Fabini's blood.
So, admittedly, it's probably a little too rich for me as well. We should mention that Isaiah Likely, he has a bone fracture in his foot. He's being drafted right around that same range. He's probably not going to be ready for week 1, but it shouldn't be long thereafter. We did get a report on Tuesday that it sounds like they're getting close to a long-term deal, which that would be great for Isaiah Likely's dynasty value. But if you're not drafting Kyle Pittz in that tight end 12 range, is there another tight end kind of in that same vicinity that you would prefer instead?
There is. 1 second. The Great Fabini's wig is itching.
I didn't know it was a wig.
The Great Fabini is very old.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Although the Great Fabini does like the alpaca haircut look that the kids have these days. Yeah. I would rather have Jake Ferguson of our beloved but disappointing Dallas Cowboys. Yes, the Great Fabini has been known to follow the Dallas Cowboys, and the Great Fabini wishes that he could put a Jedi mind trick on Jerry Jones and actually make him retire from being a general manager. The Great Fabini's powers only go so far. But Jake Ferguson has averaged more combined fantasy points per game than Pittz over the last 2 years. And last year, Dak Prescott didn't play most of the season.
Mhm.
And if you look at the numbers, when Ferguson has played as a starter for a full season with Dak Prescott at the quarterback position, he averaged 10.4 points per game. Pittz has never averaged more than 10.4 points per game in a season, Marcus. And that was back in 2021. Ferguson also just signed an extension with the Cowboys. So we know you don't need the great Fabini to know where Jake Ferguson will be for the next several years. He will be in Dallas. Kyle Pittz, he's a free agent. And if Kyle Pittz, once again, has an awful 2025 campaign, we may not know where he's going to be in 2026. But Jake Ferguson will be a Dallas Cowboy. And Jake Ferguson is also, the great Fabini loves a good bargain, Marcus. And Jake Ferguson is the tight end 17 right now, 5 spots behind Kyle Pittz. And the age difference is not that much.
No.
Jake Ferguson is 26. Kyle Pittz will be 25 in October, which is one of my favorite months, by the way. So Jake Ferguson over Kyle Pittz. And to be honest with you, you don't even need to be a great prognosticator to know that that's true. The great Fabini has spoken.
So I like Jake Ferguson as well. I think he's undervalued right now in Dynasty League football. He is tight end 17, which is a little too low for me. I agree. I think it should be in that tight end 13, tight end 14 range. I think the only thing that I struggle with Jake Ferguson is you're drafting him knowing that the ceiling to be like a top 5 or top 6 tight end probably just isn't there, especially this year, right? When you have CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, you're just not going to have the targets to be one of those top guys. And that's where, if I had to pick who I think is going to be a top 12 tight end between Kyle Pittz and Jake Ferguson, I'm taking Jake Ferguson all day long. I just think he's a much safer option. But I think the chance of one of these guys hitting and being a true difference maker in your dynasty leagues, I do think it's Kyle Pittz, just because I think he's got less competition for targets. It's really only Drake London. He's going to be somebody that I think is just going to get more targets. And this Falcons defense, I continue to think it's going to be really bad for the next couple of years. So I can see a world in which Kyle Pittz finishes as a top 5 tight end. Am I betting on that? No. But I think I would overall. I think I probably would rather have Jake Ferguson in dynasty leagues right now.
Marcus, you mentioned Isaiah Likely earlier, and the great Fabini is getting, the spirits are talking to the great Fabini, and the great Fabini has learned that Isaiah Likely will have surgery on his foot and miss approximately 6 weeks.
Yeah,
the great Fabini has spoken.
So that's obviously not great, right? I always get a little bit nervous when you're talking about foot injuries and surgeries. Maybe he misses a week or two. Not a huge deal. It's just something to monitor. We don't know exactly what type of foot fracture it is. But again, dynasty long-term, if Baltimore signs him to a contract extension with it, again, which seems like it's coming, I think we're going to move him way up our dynasty rankings, because I got to believe that Mark Andrews won't be back in 2026. And if Isaiah Likely is the clear-cut tight end 1 for this Baltimore Ravens team, now we're talking about him inside the top 7, top 8 tight ends?
The great Fabini believes that you are correct, Marcus.
Okay.
Isaiah Likely has a boatload of upside.
Yeah.
But he needs to be healthy, and Mark Andrews needs to be gone.
Yeah, which I think we both think is going to happen in 2026. You might just have to wait a little bit here, but that's one of our favorite future plays. All right, let's talk about some running backs that you should be avoiding in your dynasty leagues. We'll talk about James Conner next. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, all of your investments, and your spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building your wealth. My family has been using Monarch Money for the better part of a year now, and it's unbelievable how much they've helped us save. And we're actually starting to grow some wealth now. We've cut back on some subscriptions. We've cut back on some spending. and we're doing absolutely fantastic now. So thank you to Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out Locked On Bets. Betting experts Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers have daily MLB locks and can't miss football futures. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, Great Fabini / Michael Fabiano. In case you couldn't figure that out yet. Let's talk about some running backs here that we are avoiding in our dynasty leagues. Let's start with James Conner.
I'm not sure who this Fabiano character is that you speak of, but the Great Fabini is not a fan of James Conner in Dynasty, especially when he's coming off the board at RB26. Now, James Conner was very good last season. He had over 1,500 total yards. He scored 9 touchdowns. He scored over 250 fantasy points. But Marcus, the concern is that was the first time he had played at least 16 games in a season in his entire career. He had missed at least 4 games in each of the previous 2 seasons. And while the Great Fabini is timeless and ageless, James Conner is not. He's entering his age 30 season. So one has to wonder, including the Great Fabini, how much more James Conner has left in the tank. And the Cardinals also drafted Trey Benson last year to become the future of this backfield. And maybe that future is sooner than we think. If James Conner suffers an injury, if James Conner misses time, and the Great Fabini believes that this is very possible in 2025, we could see Trey Benson taking over a much bigger role in the Cardinals offense. So avoid James Conner at RB26. Marcus, it's just too high a price. The Great Fabini has spoken.
There you go. One of the things we need to mention is that the Cardinals lost their offensive line coach, Clayton Adams, who was widely regarded as one of the best offensive line coaches in the league. What he did with that unit last year with all the injuries, making them, I think the Cardinals finished 2nd in yards per carry in the NFL and 7th in rushing yards. Like, this was a really good running attack. Now they lost one of the key guys of that unit. On top of Trey Benson getting more work, on top of James Conner getting a little bit older, I also think they're just going to be a little bit more pass heavy this year with Marvin Harrison in year 2. They have Trey McBride. I don't think James Conner is a bad low-end RB2 this year, but in Dynasty Leagues, RB26, this is probably the last year. I would rather try to get out now, and if you can flip him for a younger running back and something else, like if you can flip him for Tony Pollard and X, I would do that all day long. I just think RB26 feels a little too rich for my taste right now.
The Great Fabini sees statistical failures in James Conner's future. So, Marcus, I agree with you.
Okay. So if you're not drafting James Conner at RB26 or in that range, which running back do you prefer instead?
The Great Fabini sees a very nice potential bargain in Jordan Mason at RB41. Okay. His average draft position is in the 120s. And Mason is just 26 years old. And if you hear what the Great Fabini hears, you know that Jordan Mason will be splitting carries with Aaron Jones Sr. this season. In fact, his head coach, Kevin O'Connell, said that it's Aaron and Jordan. It is not going to be the Aaron Jones show. And remember, Aaron Jones is entering his age 30 season. And by the way, he had more touches last season than he had in his entire career. So keep that in mind. The Great Fabini knows all. And I would not be surprised if Jordan Mason at 26 years old emerges as the better running back than Aaron Jones. And also keep in mind, this Vikings offense, very explosive, extremely explosive. The Great Fabini knows. And imagine a world where Jordan Mason becomes their lead running back into the future because Aaron Jones Sr. maybe had his best and his last best season in 2024. Jordan Mason at RB41 is a fantastic bargain, Marcus. The great Fabini has once again spoken.
Can I give you another running back that I actually like in that range? Maybe a little bit more. Same age as Jordan Mason. It's Jaylen Warren, who is RB40 right now, a current Steeler running back, or James Conner, former Steeler running back. I just think with this offense, with Aaron Rodgers, he's going to be the guy in the backfield getting all these targets, right? It's not going to be Caleb Johnson, who didn't do it much at Iowa. We've seen some clips out of training camp that suggest that it's still a work in progress. I think Caleb Johnson's going to be the guy that's getting the touches between the tackles, but it's going to be Jaylen Warren, who's on the field during passing downs. They moved on from Cordero Patterson. They do have Kenny Gainwell on the roster, but I think Jaylen Warren is somebody in PPR leagues, full PPR leagues. He could catch 4 or 5 passes every single game. I still think he's going to get a lion's share of the carries. I think Jaylen Warren on an offense that we expect to be better, maybe just a little bit more competent. I think Jaylen Warren at RB40 is a fantastic value.
Very, very good points, Marcus Mosher. Even though you are not a great sage prognosticator like the great Fabini, I respect your analysis of Jaylen Warren.
When are we going to get Michael Fabiano back? That's all I want to know.
Are you saying that you were tired of the great
it's
Fabini?
just,
Do you not like the great Fabini's voice? What is the problem with the great Fabini?
Small doses.
Can you not keep it together looking at the great Fabini in his glorious white wig?
It's the wig is the problem.
Vampire-ish looking outfit for those of you on YouTube.
Yeah, if you're not watching with us on YouTube, you at least need to go check it out because it's absolutely ridiculous. Can I give you one more running back that I kind of like? I'm not saying I like him more than James Conner, but Ramondre Stevenson at RB43 just feels a little too low for me right now because, again, we think this New England offense is going to be more competent. We talked with Michael Fabiano or Fabs or whatever you want to call it, all offseason long about how much we believe in Drake May. We think Josh McDaniels is going to be a massive upgrade in the offensive coordinator. They've made improvements to their offensive line. Travion Henderson is going to get work, but Ramondre Stevenson still seems like the guy that's going to be handling most of the carries, probably the goal line work. If you're looking for a guy this year to just be like a RB2 some weeks for you, I think Ramondre Stevenson's a good value.
Ramondre Stevenson still in the prime of his career, and I would project him because I am the great prognosticator that Ramondre Stevenson will remain the starter for the New England Patriots this season.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there you go. All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Make sure you're checking out the show on YouTube because why would you want to miss the great Fabini in that wig? Locked On Dynasty over there. Make sure you're downloading the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. You can follow Michael Fabiano on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. We'll see you back here on Friday after the NFL's first preseason game, and we'll talk about all of the latest news coming out of training camp. We'll see you guys then.